So, the new She-Ra has appeared on Netflix. Now, usually, DreamWorks have created series that I like and can binge watch in at least a day, or at most a day and a half. Dragons, Riders of Burke, Troll Hunters, Voltron, Legendary Defender, all but to name a few. This is because I get invested in the characters, the story, and the world that the show presents. But this new She-Ra, it was a slog to get through. And it's only 13 episodes. Now I know the reboot of She-Ra isn't made for me. I'm not the target audience. I've never seen the original She-Ra either, so I'm not someone who has a nostalgic tie to the series like I would do the original DuckTales, for example. Side note, watch the DuckTales reboot. So I also won't be able to do any comparing of the reboot and the original show. I'm treating this as its own thing, and I can describe the reboot of She-Ra in one word: boring. And that's possibly the biggest crime done to the series because it had so much potential for the world it was set in. You would think that giving She-Ra a decent plot for a season, or for each episode, would be easy, since the setup was given to the writers on a silver platter. The setup being that an invading force known as the Horde invades a planet. The people try to fight against the Horde but cannot seem to gain any ground because the Horde is too powerful or advanced, until when everyone has almost run out of hope, a hero arises, She-Ra, and with her help the rebellion and the people of the planet start to believe that maybe the Horde isn't as powerful as they look. So one might assume that the plot might revolve around learning about She-Ra, learning about the Horde while fighting to liberate any captured slaves or take down Horde bases that are causing trouble in the area in a guerrilla-style warfare, along the way gaining new allies and friends that can join the rebellion to rid the planet of the Horde once and for all. But instead, they throw all that out the window and instead go for episodes about teen drama and prom. You could put this down to the fact that writers aged down the characters and tried to be more relatable to the target audience, but am I the only one that thinks that's kind of a bit insulting to the audience? That the only thing they care about is prom? Adora and the others go around trying to gain allies to create the Princess Alliance after it failed the first time, while at the same time they are being hindered by the same ragtag group from the Horde to try and stop their efforts or to bring Adora back to the Horde. Which, if you think about it now, the Horde is obviously fine with using child soldiers for its army. Both the Rebellion and especially the Horde lack a sense of scale in this respect. You might be able to forgive the Rebellion side of things since it's explained that many of the princesses return to their own kingdoms, but when it comes to the Horde, its army is meant to have this looming presence over the planet. It isn't there. We don't see any base camps or Horde patrols, Horde soldiers capturing slaves for the army, just the same group of kids and maybe one or two other soldiers. Although one episode where we actually do get to see a Horde base camp, but at the same time we see how stupid and how bad at being evil the Horde actually is episode 4, when Horde soldiers, trained to fight, to use guns and other tech, are beaten by villagers using palm leaves. 2 words. Wasted potential. The only thing that caught me off guard was the rainbow power of friendship in the last episode they used to defeat the Horde. What has MLP created? Honestly, I don't know where to start with this section. I guess I'll start with, in my opinion, the best character. Catra is possibly the only character that gets a full development arc in this season. She's certainly the most fleshed out of the entire cast. Catra is a part of the Horde, and like Adora, grew up in the Fright Zone. Unlike Adora though, she wasn't well liked by many, having Adora as an only friend. At the start you get a sense that she was yearning for more. She wants to explore, to get out of it and see the world, and to blow things up. But as the season progresses, we see that Catra, she can be devious, manipulative, sarcastic, determined, but also how she might feel that she grew up in the shadow of Adora, always having to play second fiddle to the favourite of the group. So while she might be angry about Adora leaving the Horde, underneath Catra has a lot of resentment for Adora, and is happy that she is gone. Catra is also just a fun character to watch as she toys with everyone, especially Adora. But at the same time, Catra isn't perfect. When Adora decides to abandon the Horde, she tries to get Catra to come with her because Adora still sees Catra as a best friend / sister, and believes that even Catra is blind to the Horde's true intentions. But Catra says she knew everything, that she accepts the Horde is evil and still chooses the Horde over her supposed best friend. Then, even throughout the rest of the episodes, where Adora and her are fighting, Catra always tells Adora that she abandoned her, when really Adora didn't. Shadow Weaver is a bit of a mixed bag. I like what we were shown of Shadow Weaver, but at the same time I think we know next to nothing about her. It's through how she treats Catra and Adora that we get some inkling into who she is. We see how she can be cruel and almost monstrous to Catra, yet we see how she can be manipulative using honey words with Adora. Yet at some points in the show, we see how she does care for them both in a small way. We still don't know why Shadow Weaver favours Adora so much, to the point where she is obsessed about getting Adora back into the Horde. And we still don't know why Hordak gave Shadow Weaver the Black Garnet, a gem that is filled with power that is meant to be controlled by a princess. We are given a bit of a background that she used to be in charge of a place that Glimmer's aunt now runs, back when she was called Light Spinner, and that people didn't like her power. But that's about it. Entrapta is the one princess that did stick in my mind, simply because she reminds me of every other geeky character as of late. Entrapta is a princess with magic hair. Think Medusa from Inhumans, and that's Entrapta's power. But the writers also made her a really nerdy girl who builds robots and researches something called First One's tech that is scattered throughout the planet. One way to describe her is that she's like a magpie. When she sees something shiny, like a new robot or something different, she loses track of everything else to go watch and study that thing. I did get the most chuckles when she was on screen. She does join the Horde by the end of the season, but it's not because she's evil. She simply joins because she wants to do what she loves, research the First One's tech and build robots. We don't get to see or interact with Hordak much in this season. We don't know his motivation for invading the planet, and we don't really know what his goal is. All that we do know is that many people are scared of him. One thing that did puzzle me is when Adora abandons the Horde, Shadow Weaver says that they'll do everything to get Adora back, but Hordak gives the impression that he couldn't be bothered about Adora, telling Shadow Weaver to promote Catra to Force Captain instead. So not only did he lose one of his best cadets to the rebellion, one that knows the Horde nearly inside and out, one that could use certain tactics against them in order to aid the rebellion, which by the way does happen, he really doesn't care. I'm sorry, are you meant to be evil, or are you just stupid? Bo is a character that you learn to tolerate. He has an overly positive, happy-go-lucky attitude to the point where it's grating. He had a lot of cringy dialogue throughout the cartoon. Also, I swear if he said best friend squad one more time, I was going to punch my laptop. But like everything else in the show, he takes a backseat to Glimmer and Adora and the Princess Alliance. I'm not saying that every single character needs massive development, but a bit would be nice. Other than being really good at archery, the only trait about Bo is that he's Glimmer's best friend. There are a few other scenes where he does stand out a bit more, like the Seagate episode. He has a man crush on another character, is pushed to the forefront in a lot of the episode, but also the prom episode he does give Glimmer a good talking to, which she did deserve. It made him look more mature compared to Glimmer and Adora, and honestly I did want to see more of that from Bo, but we didn't. Glimmer is stubborn, headstrong, determined, but all that doesn't matter because it's all covered over by her mother issues. Seriously, this character doesn't shut up about them, and because of said issues acts like a damn child seeking attention. Though her mother isn't much better, as sometimes it's hard to tell who the child is between the two of them. Glimmer's character design also makes sense once you see her in action. The reason as to why she is so chubby in her design is because not only does she live a sheltered life thanks to her mother, but also she teleports everywhere. It's like the animators had a quota to fill on how many times Glimmer had to teleport in each episode. Even what would take some people a few feet to walk, she teleports! One way to describe Adora is inconsistent. When we're first introduced to Adora, we get the sense that this is a girl who has trained all her life to prepare herself for combat. Again, the Horde isn't one to shy away from child soldiers. We see that she's capable, with confidence to lead. But all that seems to fizzle out when she meets Glimmer and Bow. She becomes clumsy and silly. It's such a 180 that it might be comedic. I am willing to forgive Adora for having some childish whimsy about her, like when she sees a horse for the first time. But at the same time, she loses that drive she had when she was with the Horde, and just follows what Glimmer does. I will say though that when it comes time for Adora to see what the Horde was really doing for the planet, it happened very quickly. There wasn't this air of doubt or trying to reject Glimmer's and Bow's words as they showed her the remains of a destroyed Horde robot. It felt like she just accepted what they were saying was true, even though a few moments before she was held captured by them and was giving them the cold shoulder. As for her somewhat alter ego She-Ra, we know a little bit of information. In this universe, She-Ra is a role passed down from person to person. We know that she's something to do with the first ones, and we know that she is somehow connected to the princesses. But that's about it. Oh, and everyone knows that Adora is She-Ra. No secret identity plot or anything like that. I could comment on the other characters, but they're so superficial that there's really no point. Well, that's mainly because I don't remember their names. Except for maybe Scorpia. She was okay. Ish. Seahawk is just a rip-off of Han Solo, and not a very good rip-off either. Oh, and the character that everyone was talking about having the power over air? Well, she appears in the background, has one line towards the end of the show, and is indeed in a relationship with this princess. Round of applause for that LGBT representation, guys. When it comes to the animation of the show, the only way I can describe it is cheap. Continuity errors are abound in some places. Where they couldn't be bothered to animate something, it either disappears or appears where the animator demands. It's certainly not Studio Ghibli standard of animation, which one article did compare it to that was mentioned on the YouTube channel Clownfish TV. Characters do stand out from each other, but it seems that they kind of stuck with one colour palette for each character. There are also inconsistencies with She-Ra's height in the show. She's described as being an 8-foot tall woman, and in some shots she does tower over everybody, but in some shots she looks like she's just a tad taller than Bow. I also think that the Sword of Protection has a mind of its own, because in some shots it keeps appearing and then disappearing in the next. You could say that in some parts it's because of She-Ra's hair blocking the view. Still doesn't explain why we couldn't see it on Adora before it magically appears on her back. This sort of thing doesn't just happen in 1 or 2 episodes, but in every episode in the season. I understand animation errors, not everything is perfect, but this sort of thing should be picked up on during production. It does give off the same feel as some episodes in Steven Universe do, a sense of not caring. It's well known that the Steven Universe sends storyboards off to other studios to animate the show, and depending on who drew the storyboards depends on how the characters in the episode look. It's kind of the same with She-Ra. One saving grace is that the backgrounds are nice to look at, each giving a sense of the world. The Fright Zone does look ominous and almost sickly, while the Whispering Woods and other kingdoms look full of life. At the end of the day, guys, this show isn't groundbreaking, and it's shackled to the mantle that is the She-Ra title. If it was its own thing, then maybe it could have done better, but it's being held back by the fact that it's a She-Ra reboot. Even as someone who has never seen the original, I got a sense that the show was trying to escape the shadow of the original, but it just couldn't. I say it's not groundbreaking because we've seen shows like this and better shows before. Ones that are inclusive or empower women. Anime have been doing this for years to the point where I can just point towards Sailor Moon, Madoka Magica, Princess Tutu and the Precure series that are standouts. But there are also shows like Witch that aired years ago that have done this premise that She-Ra has better. As for the cartoon showing LGBT representation, you really have to look for it if you're not already distracted by the cringy dialogue half the time. There are a few parts where some characters interact in certain ways, but it's kind of brushed off in the show. Most of it, if not all, is in the background. colour schemes, a couple holding hands for a few seconds, or even these two appearing in the background. But other than these two, who announced that they are a couple in the second to last episode, and an offhand comment from Adora in the prom episode, it's not brought up. Maybe that's a good thing, because then it's not shoved in your face, and it's just treated as if it's normal in this world, which is fine. But at the same time, it can easily be ignored. Again, great job with that representation, guys. To me, guys, this show was boring. I didn't get invested in the characters or the story in general, but that's just my opinion. It's not that bad that you'll need to bleach your eyes after seeing an episode. It's something that you could just put in the background while you're doing other things or just forget about it. But it's not as good as people are praising it to be. And I think the main reason why I didn't enjoy this as much is because I've seen what DreamWorks can do. I've seen DreamWorks take a series and reboot it well. Voltron. This, to me, set a standard for DreamWorks when it came to animation for Netflix, and She-Ra doesn't meet that standard. It's far, far below it. Maybe it's about a 2 out of 5. But hey, just because I didn't like it doesn't mean that you can't like this new show. Just keep that in mind. Before I end this video, guys, I'm going to give some recommendations. The first is Voltron Legendary Defender. By the time this is being recorded, it has finished its last season of the show, but this show deserves all the praise it gets. This is a good example of what a reboot can and should do. The second recommendation is Troll Hunter, another Netflix show that is sure to scratch that fantasy itch that some people may have. That's the end of the video, guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want more Viper in your life, subscribe. If you'd like to support me further, there are links to my Patreon, Streamlabs and merch store below. See you in the next video, guys. Bye!